One of the biggest political stories of the year was the midterm elections. Even President Obama, I guess, called it a shellacking.
So when the 112th Congress convenes next year, the Republicans will control the House, and that could mean some big changes. And joining us tonight is San Diego area Republican Congressman Brian Bilbray. Thanks for joining us.
Ross, maybe.
Now that Republicans are in control, what is the GOP's New Year's resolution?
Well, in control of one of the houses, which is the House that doesn't do treaties, but does the budget. And I think that is going to be the real test. And I think the voters are going to really look at the new Republican majority in the House and really put them to the test. Like my son, Patrick, Brian Patrick said, he said that you weren't given a mandate, you were given marching orders. And I think that spending is going to be the one place where this new majority in the House is going to be really judged by. And I think that's going to be a critical test.
One of the big rumblings, of course, is health care reform. And the Republicans, or at least the Republican leadership, has said, we want to repeal it. We want to roll it back. Are you going to be able to do that this year?
Well, you can't get the president to sign the repeal. You're not going to get the Senate to approve the repeal. But the spending part about it is the item. And you got to remember, when this supposedly health care bill, which really was a health insurance bill, didn't even provide health care, was sold. It was sold to save money. Now the data has been come out. Now that the auditors have looked at it, it's going to cost more money, and I think that's what really sets people off. So the spending for that, the hiring of the 16,000 new IRS agents, I think that's going to be a hard press when we're talking about the type of fiscal crisis we're in right now. So I think that the spending that is tied to the health care bill is really in doubt, along with a lot of other spending, rightfully so.
One of the top priorities has to be finding more Americans jobs. I mean, the unemployment rate is just outlandish, especially here in California. What kind of an impact do you think the change in numbers will have for Republicans?
First of all, we need to start understanding that you cannot operate a modern economy without cost-effective energy. We've got a situation where a modern economy cannot support a system where energy costs more than labor. So what we're going to be looking at is allowing things like nuclear power to move forward, stop subsidies for things like ethanol, which are environmentally and economically very damaging and wasted efforts. We're talking about ways that we can actually move this, but you got to be brave enough to step forward and say that when you talk about building the next generation nuclear power plants, you're not talking about just electricity, you're talking about jobs, you're talking about people's prosperity. These are the kind of things that the government needs to be working at, creating a foundation so the private sector creates a job, not government. We create the playing field to where the competition can create the opportunity. We don't create the opportunity. We only create the ground where opportunity really can grow.
There's one issue that's going to keep on percolating, and that's immigration. Of course, that's very important to people here in California. How is that going to come out of this Congress? Is there a way to get both parties together on some kind of comprehensive plan?
Jobs. That's what you do. What you say is, let's make sure that no job in the United States goes to somebody who's not legally here. That job should be for Americans and legal immigrants and not illegal. And the way we do that is we go after the source of illegal immigration, and that's not the border. It is the employers who are hiring them. And universal application of E-Verify, a system that's very simple, eliminating tax deductions for employers who hire illegals by forcing them to E-Verify, and where we now get the IRS agents going, instead of going after people for not having health care insurance, we go after the employers for writing off business deductions for hiring people who are illegally here, which will be against the law if the legislation that's going to be introduced in January passes. And I think that's simple kind of thing. That's not anti-immigrant, but it's anti-illegal employer and the people exploiting and taking advantage and capitalizing off this issue. And I think that one of the things that's going to wake up is the violence at the border is finally now starting to get the attention of Washington. You can't have 33,000 people killed. You got to have the 72 just slaughtered just for no other reason than they were trying to enter the country illegally and they were held hostage. That kind of thing that Washington has to respond to. So now that we've stopped the amnesty proposals, the concepts of rewarding illegal immigration, now we got to concentrate on stop the reward to the employers who are hiring the illegals. That's one thing that I think Republicans and Democrats can get together as Americans and say, illegal employment, we can work together on.
Money, of course, is always on everybody's mind, and the U.S. government has been in a very spendy mood the last year. What's going to be done to bring down the deficit?
I think you're going to see across the board cut mandated. I think you're going to see farm subsidies being knocked off. I've talked to Tom Coburn, a senator from Oklahoma, that we're going to go after the ethanol subsidy, a huge subsidy. We've got to talk about a lot of these issues that we've not been willing to do. And that means Republican supporters are going to take a hit along with Democrat supporters. And everybody has got to go in there. And I think this is where the independent voters are going to judge us. Are you willing to tell your friends no more subsidies, no more money? They don't trust the way the federal government is spending money. And that's the one thing I get upset at my colleagues who are Republicans. We talk about government. No, we're talking federal government. This is different than a mayor or city council. These are people that you will never meet in your life spending your hard-earned money.
Cultural and political changes in Washington. Congressman, thank you for being here today. And Happy New Year.
Yep, Happy New Year.
And remember, the changes are only coming because the voters have said they want to see it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.